Hey everybody, it's Ron from Pick Dawgz, and this is Ron's Rundown. We're going to go over the MLB games scheduled for Monday, May 5th, 2025. If you like this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up button and subscribe. Put your baseball picks in the comment section below. And if you're looking for my best bets, including my daily rundown best bet in MLB, you can find those at the Premium Picks tab at pickdawgz.com. There's also a link in the description. Alright, here we go. Here are the games for Monday, Major League Baseball. First up, we got the Los Angeles Dodgers taking on the Miami Marlins. We've got Sandy Alcantara for Miami, no official starter for the Dodgers. Now, it's tough to love the spot for Sandy. He did struggle against this Dodgers lineup just last week at Dodger Stadium. And overall this season, he's got an ERA above 8. Now, I do think this outing will be a little bit better than that first start at Dodger Stadium, but it's still, a tough Dodgers team against right-handed pitching. They've not been the best team on the road this season. They have a great home record, just right around 500 on the road. But while I think the Marlins will be able to compete in other games in this series, this is the one I'm just not so sure with Sandy struggling as much as he has. I would take the over as well, and I think the Marlins, we'll see who the official starter is for LA. Maybe it's a good matchup for the Marlins offensively, but I do think they're going to be behind the 8 ball early with Sandy's struggle. So I'm going to go with the Dodgers on the run line in this one. Next up, we got the Cleveland Guardians taking on the Washington Nationals. Luis Ortiz and Jake Irvin are the projected starters. Now, I think that Luis Ortiz, not necessarily a starting pitcher I looked back too often, and he does struggle a bit against the current Nationals lineup in a small sample size. But I also think that even if the Guardians are trailing in the middle innings in this one, they have such a gigantic bullpen advantage in this game and in this series. I like their chances to find a way to win it in the end. I do think when you look at the Nationals bullpen, one of the weakest in baseball in terms of expected numbers, projected WAR, and ERA, overall highest ERA in baseball right now for the bullpen. So I just think that, Irvin struggled in his last start. I do think there are some even more regression concerns in his game. I think the Guardians can find a few runs off him and then add a few runs to the Nationals bullpen. So I'm going to roll with the Cleveland Guardians in this one on the money line. Next up, we got the San Diego Padres taking on the New York Yankees. We got Nick Pivetta and Carlos Rodon as the projected starters. Now, when I look at this series and I look at the starting pitchers on paper, I actually think it's going to be a decent one for San Diego. They've got Nick Pivetta on the mound. He's been pitching so well to start the season. Tomorrow they'll have Michael King pitching, and then even on Wednesday, Dylan Cease versus Carlos Carrasco. Even though their ERAs are similar right now, I still think that's a pitching mismatch. So at least in this first game, I do like the Padres' chances. Carlos Rodon has had a great run. His last few starts has been excellent, but he's faced a lot of weak lineups, and the Padres have been pretty good against left-handed pitching. We saw it on Sundays. They got on the board early against lefty and Andrew Heaney. I think that the Padres can score some runs for Pivetta, who's having his best start to a season he's had in his career. So yes, in his career numbers against the current Yankees hitters, he has struggled a bit, giving up some sharp contact, but he's been a much better pitcher this season with his new team than he was when he was a member of the Red Sox facing these Yankees hitters. And he's, even in those matchups, still a pretty solid strikeout rate. I think Pivetta can go 5 decent innings and hand it over to one of the best bullpens in baseball. I think they back him up in the run support department. I'm going to go with the Padres in this one on the money line at a pretty solid price. Next up, we got the Atlanta Braves and the Cincinnati Reds. Brady Singer and A.J. Smith-Shawver are the starters. I'm going to look at the Braves team total in this game. Brady Singer in the matchups he's had against the current Braves hitters, 64 plate appearances, a decent strikeout rate and a low walk rate, but high expected slugging percentage of .563 with a 370 xWOBA. Some of the Braves' current hitters like Alex Verdugo, Eddie Rosario put together some good at-bats against them. Low K rate for those guys with a lot of base hits and some sharp contact to go with it. Rosario, a 744 expected slugging percentage, about 14 plate appearances, which is, a healthy sample size. And I think that obviously that's some of the role players from the Braves. Then you got some of the stars, Olsen, Riley, Ozuna, that should be able to do some damage as well against a starter. And Singer, who had an amazing start to the year, is still putting together good numbers overall this season. He's coming off a quality start, but he's given up at least 1 home run in his last 4 games, and that's with facing a pretty weak strength of schedule. And you look at those starts: Brewers, Pirates, Mariners, Marlins, Cardinals. The Mariners have obviously been crushing righties, and he's struggled in that game, but outside of them, not necessarily any great offensive teams, and he's still given up those extra base hits, those home runs. So now in Atlanta, I think it's a bad spot for him. I'm going to take the Braves team total over in this one. Next up, the Chicago White Sox and the Kansas City Royals. Shane Smith and Cole Ragans are your starters. Now, I mentioned the Royals have been winning a lot of low-scoring games, and still over 500 to start the season, off to a solid start this year. But when they're struggling to score some runs consistently, and Cole Reagans is not in the best form, and you see this kind of price. For me, I think there's value with the White Sox plus the 1.5 runs in this game with their best starting pitcher on the mound, and Shane Smith. He's been incredible, 2.23 ERA through 32 innings. Not a ton of strikeouts, doesn't really miss a lot of bats, but limits sharp contact, limits home runs. Only one home run given up in those 32 innings. He keeps the ball on the ground, and he's faced some tough teams. He faced the Red Sox back-to-back starts, which is never easy for any pitcher, but in those 2 games, he was able to put together a decent combined 10 2/3, 5 runs. If he can go 5-6 innings of 2-run or even 3-run baseball or less, I think the White Sox have a real good shot at covering that run line and maybe even winning the game outright. So I'm going to go with Chicago plus the 1.5 runs. Next up, we have the Houston Astros taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. Ronel Blanco and Tobias Myers are the projected starters. Now, the Brewers are a team that I think, obviously they're still below 500. They had a slow start to the season. I think in May, though, I think it's going to be a good month of May for Milwaukee. And going forward, I think the Brewers will be back in the mix in the NL Central, in the National League in general. I think it's going to be tough to catch the Cubs. They're playing good baseball, one of the best offenses in the league. But I do think the Brewers will be more competitive. And, this is a very well-run organization, very smart team. I mean, manager of the year last year. I think the Brewers will be fine. They really dealt with a lot of issues at the beginning of the season, the very beginning, first couple of weeks, with all their injuries in the pitching staff and bullpen games and starters that had to be scratched. It was a tough spot to be in for Milwaukee. I actually think that they managed it quite well. It could have been a disaster couple of weeks for the Brewers in April, but here they are, still right around 500. They're playing above 500 baseball at home. I think Myers will be better going forward, and they're facing Ronel Blanco and an Astros team that's not been the best on the road, losing record on the road this season. I think this is a good spot, a good series for the Brewers. I'm going to take them on the money line at home in this one, and I think the Brewers are a team you want to watch out for in the month of May. Next up, we got the San Francisco Giants taking on the Chicago Cubs. Landon Roop and Matthew Boyd are the projected starters. I like the under in this game. I've mentioned I think Landon Roop's a lot better than his current ERA. Got a lot of upside to his game with good strikeout stuff, 35 Ks in 30 innings. And he's only given up 4 home runs in those 30 innings. So while the ERA is steep, he's kind of been a little bit unlucky, in my opinion, to start the year. He's been better at home than on the road, which makes sense for many Giants pitchers. But this is going to be Wrigley Field in a pitcher-friendly weather situation. I think he'll have a good outing, even though the Cubs have been a great team against right-handed pitching. I think Roop can put together a solid outing, and I think Matthew Boyd has been excellent to start the season. I do think there are some regression concerns to his game, no doubt about it, but I don't love this Giants lineup right now. I've mentioned the underlying numbers for San Francisco are not the best when you compare them to the other teams, especially other teams with their type of record. I mean, San Francisco has been one of the best teams in baseball in the win-loss record, but I'm going to roll with the under in Giants-Cubs for this one. Next up, the Pittsburgh Pirates and the St. Louis Cardinals. Carmen Mlodzinski and Miles Mikolas are the starters. Now, speaking about pitchers that I think are better than their current ERAs, Mlodzinski fits that bill as well. He's got an ERA in the mid-6s, but I do think he has a lot of upside as well. I think he's been rather unlucky like Landon Roop. But I will say, when you watch him pitch, he is somebody that does get a little bit emotional on the mound. Something like a defensive miscue or a mistake pitch could lead to a domino effect of unraveling, and that's always a concern when you're a starting pitcher. Mlodzinski's been mostly featured as a reliever throughout his career, so that's always a worry sign. If one thing goes bad, or like an error or some kind of mistake pitch, it could lead to some more misfortune for Mlodzinski and the Pirates on the mound. But I think he'll be good enough in this game against a Cardinals team I'm still not in love with offensively. They're coming off the doubleheader against the Mets. Michael is still not my favorite option on the bump. We're getting a good price with Pittsburgh. I think they bounce back here with a win. I'm going to take the Pirates on the money line. Next up, the New York Mets taking on the Arizona Diamondbacks. Griffin Canning for New York. No official starter for the Diamondbacks. Now, this is not a great spot in my opinion as well for the Mets. They played the Cardinals in the doubleheader on Sunday. Now they fly out to Arizona. Griffin Canning's got great numbers on paper, and even the expected numbers aren't too shabby. But if you watch his start, he does fall behind in counts very often. 3-1, 3-2, even 3-0 counts you'll see very often. Canning's been able to battle back in those at-bats and find a way to get outs, but it's just a risky way to pitch. And I think the Diamondbacks are the type of team, good walk rate, low strikeout rate, great numbers against right-handed pitching, especially at Chase Field. They should be able to get to Canning, and I think this is going to be the weakest start of the season for Griffin Canning, and I think it's going to be a tough spot for the Mets. I like the Diamondbacks in this game. We'll see who their official starter is. Maybe it's more of a high-scoring game or a competitive game there, but I think the Diamondbacks team total over is certainly in play. I think it's going to be an ugly win for Arizona. Next up, the Seattle Mariners and the Athletics. Bryce Miller and Luis Severino are your starters. Now, it's definitely a concern to see Bryce Miller not pitching deep into ball games. He's been 5 innings or less in his last 4 starts. His control's been an issue. He's had 3 walks or more given up in 4 of his last 5 games, including 5 walks his previous start to the Angels, 4 walks before that to the Red Sox. The control's been way off. His strikeout numbers have been there. I do think he's a solid starting pitching option. I am going to still take the Mariners in this game because Luis Severino has struggled at home, and the Mariners are crushing right-handed pitching right now. One of the best lineups in baseball against righties. But I am a little bit worried about Bryce Miller. It could be a high-scoring game. I'm going to take the Mariners, though, on the money line on the road. And that's it. Those are the games for Monday in baseball. Hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you're looking for my best bets, you can find those at Pick Dawgz Premium, and there is a link in the description. As always, this is Romanelli. Good luck.